Public on Streamline. Council Blessing. Councillor Holbrook. Well done. Apologies, I have Kathy Spies. Apology. Anybody else? No? I move the apology be accepted. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Quinn Compton. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. And we have a number of people on Zoom. Councillor Bernie Randall, Pakaki Community Board Chair Holly Evans, Audit and Risk Subcommittee Chair Brian Jackson, and Audit Risk Subcommittee Member Gary Simpson. Declaration of interest relating to items on the agenda. I have not been told of any. Public speaking time for items relating to the agenda. There doesn't seem to be any. Members' business, public speaking time responses, nothing. Leave of absence, anybody? No? Matters of an urgent nature? No. The Mayor's report, there's no Mayor's report again. I'll get around to sending you all volume 10 the next meeting. The report on the adoption of the long-term plan, but before then we have some business to attend to. Councillor Jackie Elliott, you have progressed a motion through the Chief Executive. Process has been kosher. Would you like to present that? I understand you've made amendment to the original one that we are familiar with.
Okay, thank you. Don't we need a mover and a seconder for her to speak to her motion?
But I want to see the motion.
Okay, so I'm just trying to find a copy of the motion. Tim, can I possibly get that copy back off you? Thank you.
And can you get Grayson to put it on the board?
Have you got it? Yeah, it's the original one at this point.
So let me get this clear. Is this the one that the new one that you amended, or the one that we are all familiar with?
Process-wise, I believe on legal advice this morning that we're required to first move this motion. I don't know, do we move it or do we move the amendment first? Because we have an amendment to it. We always intended to have an amendment to it, and possibly...
Chief Executive.
Yeah. Councillor, whatever you move will be the substantive motion. So don't move it and then try to amend it, because you only get to speak once. You won't be able to put through an amendment to your own motion. So whilst you gave us a notice of motion, I'm sure Tim has confirmed that there isn't any particular issue with you now amending the wording of that motion when you table it today. First thing you need to do is move it and have a seconder.
Let me just get that clear. So you are going to give us your amended motion?
Yes.
Right? So can we get that?
The motion is that we instruct the Chief Executive to retain the Park Avenue recycling facility infrastructure at the current site until such a time that Waikanae residents have been consulted on their appetite for a user pays recycling facility in Waikanae.
Okay, hang on. Can we just get that clear written?
Instruct the Chief Executive to retain the Park Avenue recycling facility infrastructure.
That's not a change in wording.
Can you just let her finish?
at the current site until such a time that Waikanae residents have been consulted.
The word facilities being listed out, so this is sent an email.
Okay, I can change that now. If you can do, on their appetite for a user pays, recycling facility in Waikanae. And I just want to put another word in there, please, Grace. And the top row, just could you change that sentence to retain the Park Avenue recycling facility infrastructure? Yeah, thank you.
And the rest of it,
No.
hang on.
Yep, that bit can come out.
It's still doing the long-term plan, isn't it? So, the one to stay.
I will ask you that sentence.
And so moved. Do I have a seconder?
We have up there, moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Pravanov. First instance, the Chief Executive, can you give us your advice?
You might need to change my setup, Grayson. So, trying to deal with this on the fly. Most of the infrastructure that's there, I understand, is not ours. So, not quite sure what the point of that part of the motion is. I think that within the LTP, as we've adopted it, we have already completed the consultation with the community about this, and therefore this motion is pretty close to either a direct negative of something that is in the plan or is a change that is not funded that is in the plan. So I still struggle to understand how, when we don't have any budget to undertake that consultation, it's not in the plan to do so. I struggle to see how we can adopt something that effectively is a negative of what the LTP has committed. I mean, that's my initial take on this changed notice. I will reiterate my written advice that this entire motion should be withdrawn. It is not in the interests of any members to put this forward. It's highly confusing. We've already got in train arrangements with the current operator, as has been announced publicly. And this has the effect of undermining all of that work that's underway.
It's been moved and seconded, so I will ask Councillor Elliott right of intro. After that, those councillors who are wanting to speak on it can speak on it only once, and then we'll go back to Councillor Elliott for right of reply, and then the vote will be taken.
At which point can your questions will start?
Moving seconded, so now's the right time, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. You can ask questions now. Councillor James Coates.
So I'm supportive of any member bringing a notice of motion through the appropriate channels, and I understand there was 4 signatories to the notice of motion, which was quite a substantial notice of motion in terms of wording. This, for me, represents a quite a significant variation from that notice of motion. So I guess my worry is it opens the door for putting a notice of motion forward to get a foothold into the procedural part of the meeting. I could bring a notice of motion to a future meeting and then during the course of the meeting say that that's now been changed and here's the new one. I just really struggle to understand from a procedural perspective how, nothing against those that have moved the motion or the contents of it, but just that we're following standing orders and procedurally following how we apply notice of motions. And then I've got a follow-up.
Chief Executive.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I mean, it's messy, isn't it? But a notice of motion, the point of it is to give all members a chance to understand the motion before turning up at the meeting. Essentially, what we've got to now is this is a motion that is effectively during the course of the meeting, as distinct from that notice of motion. As you know, when you're debating any report, you can move new resolutions as part of that. We would have to interpret that this is now that step in the process, and so it's up to this table to now deal with it at face value would be my guidance. It's unhelpful because, of course, it is completely different. I haven't seen it, you haven't seen it, so nobody's had a chance to evaluate it. It is still going to the same subject matter, though.
So can I just clarify? The original one was signed off by 4 councillors. We have 3 councillors here. Can I check, Councillor Randall, you are one of the signatories. Can I have your response in terms of support for this substantially changed motion? Councillor Randall. Have you got him? Councillor Randall, can you hear me?
Would it be appropriate for Councillor Randall to put it in the chat comment if we're unable to resolve the...
I think because we're not at a voting stage, we could be okay with that. You know that standing order says if the technology fails,
Yes.
he just can't participate.
Why don't we unmute the... We've got about 5 minutes.
Can we have an adjournment?
Yep, we'll adjourn it for 5 minutes.
There is
Can you give him on the phone?
let's see if we can resolve it within 5 minutes.